Previously on 5 points of articulation. I'm sure that somebody might repaint Rebirth to match the blue and gray color scheme, but so far I haven't seen it. Well, better late than never. Welcome to 5 Points of Articulation. Today, I'm taking a look at the new McFarlane Toys digital Rebirth Batman and checking out some unmasked Bruce Wayne head swaps. Starting off with the packaging, and we have an all-new box to look at, with just a Batman name and logo down here. It's nice and clean. Admittedly, it's not all that different from a DC Multiverse. On the side, we have names and logos. Again, very similar to DC Multiverse. For those trying to find this unmasked Bruce in stores, here's the barcode. Notice that this is specified as the Court of Owls version. I point that out because, no it's not, Court of Owls was New 52, and a different design. If anything, this should be called Rise of Gotham, but that's for the next category. QR code for the digital thing on the side, and a full-sized illustration on the back. Looks to be Jim Lee, but unfortunately no credit was given. I'll be honest, I don't really see this as a necessary new box, but that says more about how I feel about the digital gimmick. It's colorful and new to the palette, and for packaging, I'm giving it 5 out of 5. Moving on to presentation, and Batman stands just a hair under 7 inches, and is near complete reuse of the original DC Rebirth. Sculpt-wise, the only things that are new were this open hand, and this all-new head. While I do like this original head, one thing I've said a lot in head swaps is that it's a bit small. This one is ever so larger, so I'm really curious to see how this one's going to scale when it comes time to swaps. The look and proportions are good. In fact, I think it's a pretty good match for the cover of I Am Gotham #1. Otherwise, the only difference are the colors. As much as I do like the black and gray version, I've always felt that the gray was a bit too dark. To be honest, I wish this is the gray that they would have used for Nightfall Batman. That actually brings up an interesting point. I wonder why they used the classic Batman symbol for Rebirth Batman. Considering that Green Lantern and Aquaman are Silver Age, I wonder if they were originally going to do that with this figure but then changed their mind. Either way, one new detail is that the yellow's been swapped out for gold. It's nice and clean, and compared to recent releases like the Clayface box set, it's nice to see them go in and give it all that paint detail. It might seem like this is a frivolous repaint, but he was blue and gray in that I Am Gotham storyline, so in terms of Batman's costume evolution, I do feel like this is a necessary inclusion. In fact, we've only ever gotten this version one other time. At first, I'd thought about doing this as a versus with DC Essentials, but honestly, it's no contest. McFarlane is an all-new sculpt with no seam line or detail neglected, whereas Essentials is a simple blank body. That said, if I'm honest, I do prefer this head sculpt. I also prefer this shade of blue. Going back to the comic, and it's much more accurate than the blue that McFarlane went with. Come to think of it, the blue they used for Hush would have been perfect. Additionally, Essentials includes one other detail that McFarlane neglected, the purple lining to the cape. As someone who doesn't like the purple lining, I don't really mind that. Still, it's worth pointing out. Also, the cape is much softer and more pliant this time around. Overall, a great figure, held back only by a couple of inaccurate paint choices. For presentation, I'm giving this Batman 4 points. Moving on to posability, and we've already seen this before, so we know it's going to be good. From the top, and the neck is on a dumbbell joint, and you can look up this high, this far down, really great tilt, and all the way around. Moving down, his arms raised 90 degrees, though I do get the impression they could have raised even higher if not for the cape. He has a rotator cuff, but doesn't really do a whole heck of a lot this time around. Moving down though, he has double jointed elbows with a great bend, and wrist balls nicely hidden by the gauntlets that can swivel and hinge in any direction. Moving to the middle, and Batman has a diaphragm joint and a dumbbell waist. He can arch back this far, which is great, just mind the gap. Additionally, he can only hunch forward this far. Really good amount of tilt though, and twist. Below the nicely painted utility belt, and Batman has the typical McFarlane hips. He can kick about 90 degrees, which is decent, and do a perfect split. Decent amount of twist in the hip. And then moving down, Batman has double jointed knee, toe articulation, and McFarlane ankles that can swivel, hinge, and like Rebirth Batman from blue and gray to black and gray, pivot. Coming, I'm sure, as a surprise to no one for posability, I'm giving this Batman 5 points. Moving on to playability, and as usual, Batman comes with a trading card and a figure stand, but because this is a new line, that trading card is a bit different. We've got that new digital color scheme, and for those who are interested, you can read his bio here. Except for the new digital logos, the stand is the same, and I'd be remiss if I didn't point out it's my favorite color. Otherwise, we've already seen his new open hand, but he does have a repack of the original fist. He also has an alternate open hand Batman that's good for scratching the chin, or for brandishing weapons like this batarang and grapnel gun. They're the same ones he previously came with, now cast in gold. The most important accessory, however, is this new unmasked Bruce Wayne head. This is something a lot of us have been wanting for a long time, and it looks great. Because of it being scaled for Rebirth, though, I'm a little concerned about how it's going to do on head swaps, but we'll get there when we get there. In the meantime, we have to acknowledge the elephant in the room and talk about the digital aspect. I've been collecting action figures since they looked like this. For me, a big part of the allure is that tangible, tactile quality. Suffice it to say, I would take something I can hold in my hands over a picture on a screen any day, but that's me. If you want to explore this aspect of the figure, it comes with a trading card, which includes a scratch-off code and some instructions. Of course, playability is more than just accessories, either physical or digital. It's also about how well your figure plays with others. Beginning with other members of the Justice League, and here's Batman betwixt Rebirth and Action Comics 1000 versions of Superman. The blues on Rebirth match nicely, but he towers over him. On the subject of characters towering over him, we don't have Rebirth Wonder Woman yet, but here's Shazam! Fury of the Gods doing the PP dance, and also the McFarlane Collector Edition. Next up are Rebirth and Flashpoint versions of the Flash. Flashpoint scale's okay. Sorry in advance to anyone really hoping for that Quisp review, but I'm not going to be getting the Silver Age Aquaman. That said, while we await my Silver Age Green Lantern review, here we have NECA and McFarlane. And then moving from the Justice League to the Bat Family, and here we have Mattel and McFarlane versions of Damian, Mattel and McFarlane versions of Tim Drake. We have a modern one coming, but in the meantime I do like this Mattel version. Next we have Titans Wave and Better Than Batman versions of Nightwing, DC Essentials and Three Jokers version of Red Hood. For Batgirl, here we have Art of the Crime and the Batman Family 5-pack. I picked that one because of the blue and gold. While not an exact match, they're close enough. Of course, for the most important member of the Bat Family, and here we have the Mattel version of Alfred. Veering into villainy, and here we have Rebirth and Clown versions of the Joker, Arkham City Penguin while we wait for the upcoming comic version, and as we hope for either a Hush or a Tom King version of Catwoman, here we have Arkham City and the Platinum Nightfall. Rounding out the rogues, and here we have an Arkham City Riddler, Infinite Frontier Scarecrow, Rebirth Deathstroke, who technically should be taller than Batman, and since McFarlane thinks that this is a Court of Owls Batman, here he is with Talon. For a relative scale comparison, here's Batman with Pizza Spidey and the Spectacular Spider-Man, and as always, here he is with Stealth Iron Man. I thought we were going maskless. Fine. Ever thought of growing a mullet? Of course, playability is also more than figure comparisons. It's also about head swaps. First, just a quick reminder that figures like Three Jokers or Hush or Bowel Damaged have a different style of neck and are not compatible. In order of release, leastways as best as I can remember, and here we have DC Essentials. I hope you don't mind, I switched over to the black and gray version because that neck peg was already loose. Those pegs are incompatible, by the way, so it's not going to click into place. Still, it's pretty snug and scales very nicely. For a really fun one from the first wave, and here we have the Hellbat armor. The peg is unfortunately not long enough for it to click into place, so it's just kind of sitting there. Even so, it gives you a great idea of just how big this armor is. Next up, and for another blue and gray Batman, and here we have the Walmart exclusive version of Detective Comics 1000. If I've said it once, I've said it a million times that just about any head looks better on this body than the one that came with it. If you like what you see, though, you are going to have to repaint the blues. Otherwise, once again, the pegs don't match so it doesn't click into place, but for action figure photography purposes that should not give you a problem. Although it's a different man under the cowl, and here we have Flashpoint, I'm just now realizing how similar the face on this Batman head is to Flashpoint and also Three Jokers. Granted, McFarlane did do an unmasked version of this character already, but if you want to make this work, you're going to have to repaint the hair and add a 5 o'clock shadow. Next up, and for one of my favorites, here we have Arkham Knight. As a short ear design for this armor, I like it, and to be fair, it's not that much of a difference in size than the original one. Other way around, and the Bruce Wayne head looks pretty good too. Full disclosure, I don't have it clicked into place, but it's not going anywhere. For one that I don't bring out nearly enough, and here we have Batman Beyond. This is a fun swap for those who want to use this head for Terry McGinnis, or when Bruce decided to end his career that fateful night when he had to reach for the gun. Granted, that would require a little extra gray in the hair. While we're here, I recently got a request for a head swap between Futures and Batman Beyond. I gotta admit this does look really cool. Admittedly, I don't know how I feel about the other way around, but if you're watching, I hope this helps. Here's the original DC Multiverse Rebirth. Really, I just want to give you an idea of what the Bruce Wayne head would look like on this one. Obviously not that different, but I like it. Next up is the similarly sized page punchers. I love the head that comes on this body, but I gotta admit, if you painted this mask black, I think I'd like it even better. The size and proportions are just perfect. Bruce is looking good too. He's clicked into place, but a little bit loose. For another page punchers, and here we have Injustice 2. Because Rebirth and Injustice 2 are similarly sized, the head scales well. I can't speak to whether or not this is a perfect likeness to Injustice Bruce Wayne, but the head is a perfect fit. For one of my admittedly lesser favorites, and here we have Dark Detective. I did have to use the peg that came with the new Rebirth Batman for this one. I think it's a bit small, but it doesn't look bad. Obviously, the more important question is the Bruce Wayne head, and despite being a little bit small, I do still think is a really good match. Next, and for a more colorful costume, and here's the Batman of Zur-En-Arrh. Considering how wild and crazy the long-eared purple head is, I don't really know why you'd want this one. I'm just here to give you ideas. I'm happy to report that Bruce's head is a perfect fit, though considering we're talking about Zur-En-Arrh, I do kinda wish he looked a little bit crazier. For another video game comparison, and here's Arkham City. As long as you don't mind the longer, more gangly limbs, this is fine. It doesn't look like Arkham Bruce Wayne, but as the basis for a comic custom, you could have a lot of fun. Next up is the Sinestro Corps. Just be warned that the head sits a little bit low, and it's also a bit small compared to the body. The same issues apply to the Bruce head, unfortunately, but if you want to see what an unmasked version of this body would look like, here you go. For one that I'm sure we're all very curious about, and here we have Nightfall. If you wanted shorter ears and a face closer to 3 Jokers, this is a great fit. Just note that the blue isn't an exact match. Other way around though, and I think a lot of you are going to be very happy with this. Had they released this head with this body, it would have been perfect, but the swap is worth it. For just a couple of movie versions, and here's the gold label Batmobile 2-pack version of the 1989 Batman. I'm mostly staying away from movie figures this time because stylistically the heads don't really match the actors, but for those wanting to use this as a comic body or as a Kenner tribute, I still wanted to show you what it looked like, most especially with the Bruce Wayne head. He's definitely not going to pass for Keaton, but you could still do some pretty fun customizing. And lastly, here we have the Dawn of Justice Batfleck. I know some of you want to use this as a base for a comic style Batman. The head is good, but it's a little bit narrow for the neck, unfortunately. Bruce has the same issue and is a little bit small, though you could argue that the thicker neck is because of the extra material from the cowl. Digital aspect aside, this figure already comes with extra hands, a grapnel gun, and a batarang, and that's to say nothing of the versatility of the alternate Bruce Wayne head. For playability, I'm giving this Batman 5 points. This leaves us with nothing left to discuss but the price. Rebirth Batman retails for $24.99 as opposed to the usual DC Multiverse $20. The line seems to exist just to get some repaints out there while wooing people into that new digital format. The digital stuff doesn't interest me, but if you like it, more power to you, and I'm not going to pretend it doesn't have any value. Somebody's getting paid to make those models and maintain that showroom. For me, the appeal is having a quality Batman figure with lots of accessories and at a price cheaper than a collector edition. If that extra cost is a turn-off to you, I get it, and I'm not going to argue you, but for me, and for price, I'm giving this Batman 5 points, averaging to a grand total of 4.8 out of 5. Which head swap was your favorite, and were there any I didn't do that you would have liked to have seen? Sound off in the comments, and while you're down there, let me know if you'd like to see a full-on versus with DC Essentials. If you like this video, check out one of these. Thank you so much for watching. I'll be back again real soon, but until then, play nice and have fun.